You are not exhausted from overworking. You are exhausted because you have spent your precious years kneeling before inferior minds and calling it cooperation. You have been conditioned to believe that submission is a social virtue, but in the ruthless arena of power, a man who is unarmed is not kind. He is merely prey waiting for a predator. Look at the world outside your window. It is nothing more than a stage teeming with puppets performing for a ghost audience. They follow scripts they did not write and obey behavioral codes they are too blind to decode. The throne of autonomy remains empty, not because no one is capable of claiming it, but because the 99% tremble before the cold, sharp reality of true power. They prefer the warmth of the herd over the solitude of the heights. Most of you are currently victims of unseen behavioral control, moved by strings of social proof and cognitive biases you cannot even name. You think you are making choices, but you are merely reacting to psychological triggers pulled by masters you will never meet. Today, we are not here to comfort you. Comfort is the opiate of the conquered. We are here to dismantle the outdated psychological machine clunking inside your skull and replace it with the cold, calculated precision of a psychological architect. To rule, one must have no other thought, nor take anything else as his art, but the art of war and its discipline. In this age, the battlefield is not made of soil and iron. It is built of subconscious influence and silent domination. If you are ready to stop being the material and start being the architect, listen closely. We are about to decode the code.
You feel it, don't you? That cold, creeping realization that you are a ghost in your own life. You enter negotiations and find yourself marginalized, your voice drowned out by the sinister opinions of the crowd, those loud, irrational masses who move in herds because they are terrified of thinking alone. You believe you are being collaborative, but in reality, you are being controlled by strings you cannot see, dancing to the rhythm of social proof and cognitive biases that you haven't yet learned to break. You have spent years trying to be kind. You offered your honesty and your empathy to a world that views these as invitations to exploit you. But here is the Machiavellian truth. Kindness without claws is merely weakness in a mask. By remaining unarmed in your psychological disposition, you have transformed yourself into a material to be molded by the ambitions of others, rather than the architect of your own domain. You have become the prey for those who act purely on the instincts of the beast, and your exhaustion is the price of your defenselessness. The solitude you endure now, the feeling that you are an outsider looking in, is not a defect of your destiny. It is a sign of a positive mutation. While the 99% are content to be isolated pieces in a game of chess, merely reacting to the moves made by their masters, you are beginning to disconnect from the herd. You are evolving. You are entering the ranks of the 1%, the psychological architects who understand the truest truth, that human beings are not naturally political entities to be respected, but malleable materials to be shaped according to the fundamental necessities of power and influence. Your isolation is the laboratory of your future reign. You are no longer satisfied with being a puppet. You are ready to see the strings. You are ready to decode the mechanics.
You have lived your life under the delusion that power is loud. You think it is the roar of the lion or the silver tongue of the orator. You are wrong. True influence is not a performance. It is a siege. In the art of war, a fortress is built to resist the furor of artillery. In the psychology of war, your silence is that wall. When you speak, you offer the enemy a target. You reveal the breach in your internal defenses. But when you remain quiet, you become a void that others desperately try to fill with their own insecurities. Silence and pauses are not gaps in conversation. They are strategic weapons that create emphasis and signal discomfort in your adversary. Those who feel the need to explain themselves are already acting as inferiors seeking clemency. And in the formation of life, people will only fear you when they cannot predict your next move. To be predictable is to be mastered. The 99% are transparent. Their desires and fears are written on their sleeves for any predator to read. But the psychological architect understands that a captain is never to do battle unless he has the advantage, and that advantage is born from secrecy. If your moves are cyclical and repetitive, you are merely a machine to be decoded. To rule, you must be the enigma, the unseen hand that moves unforeseen and unexpected. The core message is this: influence does not come from being the loudest in the room. It comes from the understanding of the silent music of the mind. While others listen to words, which are edited, filtered, and false, you must watch for the disconnect. You must master the micro-expressions, those tiny involuntary tremors in a lip or a double blink that happen in a flash. These are the emotional data points that form a map of the soul. In these moments, people communicate with brutal honesty, betraying their most eloquent lies through the shallow breath or the flared nostril. Stop believing the performance. Start decoding the code. True power is the ability to see the truth while others are blinded by the smoke of their own words.
Now that the veil is lifted, we move from the abstract to the tactical. To reshape the world, you must first master the iron laws of human engineering. Here is the architecture of your reign. Argument 1. Building the internal fortress of discipline. The right to rule begins with governing oneself. A prince should have no other object nor take anything else as his art, but that of war and its discipline. You are currently a chaotic map of reactions. You must become a fortress. To do this, you must establish your own baseline, a foundation of behavior so consistent and repetitive that it becomes your shield. By mastering a disciplined rhythm in how you sit, breathe, and speak, you ensure that any deviation you display is a conscious choice of deception rather than an accidental betrayal of your inner state. Remember, if where there are men there are no soldiers of the self, it arises through a defect of the prince.
Argument 2. Decoding the battlefield. Reading the outsider. Do not listen to what they say. Words are merely edited performances. To rule, you must observe the disconnect between their eloquent lies and the involuntary betrayals of their anatomy. Every white-knuckle grip on a glass, every double blink, and every shallow breath is an emotional data point for your map. While the crowd relies on politeness and face value interactions, you must observe deeper, catching the micro-expressions that reveal the truth before they finish their sentence. A wise ruler never reacts to provocation. Instead, he collects these signals until he understands his adversary's pressure points better than they understand themselves. Argument 3. The ruthlessness of silence. In every dialogue, let silence be your siege engine. Never explain. To explain is to use the language of an inferior seeking clemency or a manager trying to avoid accountability. Silence and strategic pauses are not gaps. They are weapons that create emphasis and trigger the deep-seated discomfort of your opponent. When you remain quiet while others perform and debate to prove their worth, you hold the room without spending a single arrow. True understanding does not chase attention. It recognizes that real insight is seeing clearly while others waste their energy trying to be heard. Argument 4. Purging junk relationships. Governance by necessity. You must purge all links founded on the illusion of love or gratitude. Gratitude is a link of obligation that is broken at every opportunity for a person's advantage. A wise prince adopts a course where his citizens and allies will always, in every sort of circumstance, have need of him. All connections must be based on necessity. You do not want friends who stay because they like you. You want dependents who stay because they cannot survive without you. In a world of predators, men, iron, money, and bread are the sinew of war. Ensure you are the one who holds the iron and the bread, making the loyalty of others a matter of their own self-preservation.
We do not ask you to press a meaningless button on a screen. Such gestures are for the masses who crave digital validation and follow the scripts of social proof. Instead, we require you to make a solemn commitment to your own ambition. If you wish to ascend to the architect level, your first act of rebellion must be this: cease seeking consensus from the crowd. The 99% are conditioned to look for safety in numbers, but the psychological architect understands that true authority is found in the silence of the heights, not the noise of the herd. Real understanding does not chase attention. It recognizes that true insight is seeing clearly while others are merely performing. To rule is to have no other thought, nor take anything else as your art, but the discipline of psychological warfare. You have been initiated into the secret science of silent domination and unseen behavioral control. Do not squander this knowledge by returning to your old habits of reactive compliance. The screen will soon go dark, and you will return to the world outside, a stage filled with unseen threads and invisible directors. You now hold the keys to the code. The only question that remains as you step back into the light of the ordinary is this: do you want to be the one pulling the strings, or the puppet who spends his entire life thanking the hand that controls him?